Okay. Namaste everyone. Welcome to Advaita Vedanta Satsang House. As you might be familiar, if not, the new schedule we have follow with live rooms with Binduji, where we are starting with chapter 5. We had 3 rooms last week. It was Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 6:30 a.m. But we are switching because Binduji is scheduled due to the schedule. We are switching to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 6:30 a.m. IST. So please make a note of that. You can access the replays in Clubhouse, or you could go to the link shared in the chat, Advaita Retold YouTube channel, where they are well cataloged in a series. There are also links from Apple Podcast and Spotify, where you can access these talks. There is also a book written by Artemisia, based on Binduji's insights into Advaita, which can be a good companion to as a reading companion, where you can gain deeper insights into the Advaitic method. For housekeeping, I'll close the chat and hand raising when Binduji is conducting the class, after which the channels will be open for Q&A. You can either come up and ask, or you can put it in the chat. And as always, thank you, Binduji. Over to you.
Thank you, Prakash. Thank you, Atmisha. Welcome and Hari Om to all of you. I have listened to the open house on Sunday. It was a very good beginning, and I would say that contributions by Prakash, Mahathir, Srinivas and Uma have been very, informative and insight into how they are looking into the teachings and the subject as a whole. Madhir was very, very expressive, and I really appreciate his way in which he did it. And the questions which Prakash gave kept the tempo of the room going. I would like you to continue the same effort so that when I listen to the replay, I know exactly where some misunderstanding has happened from my explanation, which I can correct it and explain it later. But I didn't find any in this gone episode of last Sunday. So with that, let me do my invocation for today's class. And because I had to change it to Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, mainly because either Monday or Friday, family of my daughter, they have some related activities. But normally Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they are busy with their routine. So I also thought it is better for me to do it on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so that the classes are not broken or it can be continuous. With that, we will continue to today's class, the 4th class in 5th chapter. My invocations. Namo Brahmadibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartrubhyo Vamsharishibhyo Mahadbhyo Namo Gurubhyaha Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loga Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashi Gritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murtibeda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The Gita Dhyana Slokam. Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Tunvandi Divyai Stavai Vedai Sangapadakrammo Panishadai Gayanti Yam Samaga Dhyanavastita Tadgatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yogino Yasyandam na vidussura suragana Devaya tasmai namaha Devaya tasmai namaha Devaya tasmai namaha. Oh. So in the last class, we discussed about the Sannyasastu, then Mahabahu, the verse which was talking about the psychology of the Antakarana and the pedagogy of Antakaran Viveka. Yoga Yukta Muni, one who has walked the preparatory path with full commitments, he will find Brahman not at the end of the road, Chirena Adhigachati, immediately falling away of the veil, the Ajnana Samshaya Viparya, na Chirena, as swiftly as possible, effortless, as the dawn dissolving the darkness of the night, that is the example given. Having told about that, how does he achieve it instantaneously? The next verse is a explanatory verse from different aspects of our understanding of the Jivatma, the individual empirical self, and how does he get impacted by the Brahmatjnana or the knowledge of the Brahman, which was mentioned in the earlier verse. So the 7th verse says that Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma Vichitatma Jitendriyaha Sarva Bhutasma Bhutatma Kurvannabina Lipyate. The first line and the second line, first word, are all adjectives of the Jivan Mukta or the man of realization. Yoga Yukta Vishuddhatma Jijitatma Jitendriyaha means one who yoked with yoga or integrated with yoga of completely pure inner being, Vishuddha Atma. And Vijitatma means he has mastered the mind. Jitendriya, not only he has mastered the mind, he also has conquered his senses. Such a person, Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma, one whose self has become the self of all. This is the actual happening, or what is being understood as the realization. And the word Kurvannabina Lipyate is the result. Even though he is continuing to live in this world, Kurvannapi, even while acting in this world as normally as any other human being, na lipyate. He is not tainted or stained or touched or adhered by the karma or karma phala, because he is nor the doer nor the enjoyer of it. Let us look at the individual words. Yoga Yukta is a compound word of two words, yoga and yukta. Yoga is, we know what is yoga. We have learned yoga in our previous verses where Krishna has explained what is yoga. Yukta means one who is yoked to yoga or integrated through yoga. Is a attribute of the Jivan Mukta. It has been actually continuation from the same 6th verse where he said Yoga Yukta. Yoga Yukta or Munir. He used the word Muni there. So here, now it describes not the aspirant who is approaching the knowledge of Brahman, but one who has arrived. Brahma Atigata, whose yoga or whose identification or integration or abidance has reached its culmination. The term now describes the state of the person, not a practice. It is not a yoga which is an action. Here yoga becomes the state through the integration. So that is the yoga yukta. The second word is Vishuddhatma. Vishuddha means purified. Atma here is not the self which is being referred. Here it is the self as an individual. Not the ego, not the individuality, but the same self which is now being seen by the Jivan Mukta as his self. We also are perceiving ourselves as the individualized ego. That is where the adhyasa is taking place. Therefore, we think we are the body, mind, intellect. At the same time, we know we are not the body, mind, and intellect. Yet we are unable to declutch ourselves from the identity of the body, mind, intellect complex. So for us, the Atma is the individuality. But the one who has arrived at the knowledge of Brahmatma, he is the one who is being here referred as Vishuddhatma. One who has Atma is completely purified. Therefore, the Atma is of the end of the Jivan Mukta. Do not identify with the body, mind, intellect complex like how we do. One of completely purified inner being. He is not seeing himself as the identifier with the body, mind, intellect complex. He has purified that identity. That purification is the wrong notion which we have that we are the individuality with the body, mind, intellect complex. That wrong identification is the avidya or the ignorance or what is called the malam or the effect of Atmana Samshaya Viparya. So Vishuddhatma is Vishuddha Antakarana. One whose Antakarana or the inner being has been rendered completely transparent through the sustained Karma Yoga, where he has started with offering the karmas to a higher pedestal or any stage, Ishta Devata or Ishvara. As he matured, he moved away from a doer to the non-doer, non-enjoyership. That is the transparency which is taking place. And it is through the Karma Yoga he has achieved that. The prefix Vishuddha is to show that is to show the completeness of the purification. Shuddha means purifying. Vishuddha means completeness of purification. It is not a partial Shuddhi. Like we have a partial knowledge. We know that we are not the body, mind, intellect complex. At the same time, we are not identified ourselves with the body, mind complex. So we still continue to remain as the empirical being in an empirical world. Whereas a person who is a Vishuddhatma, it is not a partial Shuddhi or partial purification, but the total removal of the mala, impurity in the form of raga, dvesha, moha and identification with the inner being or antakarana. And these are all clouds in the chitta where the Satchitananda, that nature of pure Atman, is the one which is shining. In spite of that, we are unable to see that nature of ours as the Shuddha Atma because of this Raga, Dvesha, Moha, etc., which we identify. It is not that Raga, Dvesha, Moha is not happening. But we identify with that and say that it is my desire, my, hatred, my, attachments, etc. All those things comes with the mind. The mind is the reason why the impurity is still clung to us or clinging to us. And they are like clouds. They cannot permanently remain there. The clouds which prohibit the sun from shining is actually not touching the sun nor making the sun ineffective. But the effect of the sun is clouded by the thickness of the cloud, depending upon if it's a dark cloud or a thin cloud. Same way, the raga, dvesha, moha, and abhimana, etc., which are the part of the antakarana, where the shining of the atma is permanent. Even while talking this, even while listening this, every moment of our experience, pratibodham, every moment of the life, it is that atma which is, because of which we are able to identify everything which is happening outside as the objects and we as the subject. This subject is not the antakarana, not the inner instrument where the mind, body, intent, etc. is acting, but it is the pure self. But that self is not identified by us, or when the Vishuddhatma, one who has purified his antakarana from the raga, dvesha and the mala, etc., his Atman shines completely. That is why the Vishuddha word is used. So the Atman in this compound refers to the Jivatma. Jivatma means it is the same Atma. It is like with the example, which we saw earlier. It is the reflection, or it is the part of the sunlight which is reflected on the surface, which we call it as Jivatma. The Sanskrit term for it is Andakarana Upahita Chaitanya. Andakarana means the body, the mind and the intellect. That is the Andakarana. Upahita Chaitanya means functioning through. Upahita means restricted and functioning through. What is restricted and functioning through the Andakarana or the mind and the intellect? The same Chaitanya. There are no two Chaitanya. It is the same self, which is now in you, me, and every object or every creation. But due to the upahita or the conditioning of the mind and the intellect, we feel I am, that the individuality is born. So the self which is being referred here is Vishuddha Atma, is of that which is conditioned by the mind and intellect, not the transcendent Atma, which is ever pure. That is Nitya Shuddha Buddha Mukta Swabhavaha. That Atma is pure, ever pure. Therefore, the purification is of the Upahita, means the Upadhi, conditioned through the instruments of mind and intellect. Because the Atman doesn't need any purification. It is ever pure. So purity is when it is functioning through the instrument. The instrument need to be sharp. The instrument need to be pure. The instrument need to be functional 100% to convey the power of the operator. If you are considering Atma as the operator. But he is not even an operator. His presence is the one with which we feel that in the mind and intellect is functioning. To add to this aspect, the next word, Vijitatma, is specifically referring to the mind or the inner self as the mind. Vijita, jita means mastered or conquered. Vijita means completely conquered or mastered. Again here Atman is referring to the mind. Andakarana, not specifically the mind and intellect complex. Here it is referring to the very mind with which we call as mind, human being, manasa, man. In Sanskrit, in Hindi we call it as man. In Sanskrit we call it as manas. And it is that which is the nodal aspect of the inner instrument. Even the intellect depends upon the mind. Even the memory depends upon the mind. Even the emotions, feelings, thoughts, and operations of the sense organs depends upon the mind. So the mind as a inner organ is called the Atma itself, because it is through the mind the entire functions of the andakarana of the manobuddhi, ahankara, chitta, all of them are functioning. So when it is mentioned here, the jidatma, it is referring to that aspect of the mind which is being needed, conquered. While we said the purification is required for the intellect and the other things, the andakarana, the victory of the mind is the most important aspect, not purification alone. By purification, you are purifying what has already been impacted upon. But how will you stop further impact or the further, the ignorance and the misapprehension, etc., happening again from the mental level? For that, we need to conquer the mind. That is why he is referring here as Vijitatma. So if we look at the Vishuddhatma, the Amdakarana purified of impurities. Whereas in the case of Vijitatma, it is the mind where the reactive, impulsive and the accumulation of all current activities becoming memories, etc., being prohibited or won over, conquered. Whereas the Vishuddhatma's nature is positive quality of purity which is being achieved. The case of Vijitatma, it is the mastery over the manovrittis or the mental thought flows, etc. The mind longer drags the jiva toward the objects. When we win over our mind, the self is not dragged to the objects of, indriyas, where the mind is the one which is, evaluating the sensory inputs from the sense organs, both external sense organs and internal sense organs. So Vijitatma, a conquered self, points to the mastery of the manovrittis, the cessation of the mind's habitual movement towards the sense object, Vishaya. In Advaita, this is not the suppression in the Nigraha which is there in the Patanjali Yoga. But in the Advaita, it is not a Nigraha but a natural settling of the mind, Prashamana, where Vairagya is complete and Viveka becomes operative. That is the place where it is the winning over the mind takes place. It has to be handled with both Viveka and Vairagya. Vairagya is withdrawal from the objects. Viveka becomes operative that it knows that it no more need to be withdrawing from the object, but because the objects are understood from the Atma level. The mind no longer seeks because the Jiva has recognized that all seeking was rooted in the false premises of Purnata Abhava. No, the Purnatvam which is of the nature of the self, our own nature. When that is absent, we feel a lacuna or a need or a desire or a sense of need to fulfill something. That apurnatva or purnata bhava, why is the false premises based on which the mind was moving towards the objects, vishaya. The sense of lack. With the atmajnana or with the knowledge of the self, the Jivan Mukta has now dissolved that sense of lack or absence or need in him. Therefore, the Vijidatma is the one who has completely conquered the mind. While the mind is conquered, the next word, Jitendriya, talks about the external organs. The Indriya doesn't mean the senses of cognition, but senses of action also. By whom the senses have conquered. He is the master of the senses. He is never a subjugate or a subjudized by the sense organs and making him powerless. So Vijitatma of the previous word is moving now from the mental level to the external level, from the inner to the outer, from the mastery of the andakarana, the sense organs, to the mastery of the bahirkarana, the external organs, both jnanendriyas and karmendriyas, that is senses of cognition and senses of action. Shankaracharya consistently holds that, the outer sense restrainment cannot happen unless it flows naturally from the mastery of the inner sense, inner organ, andakarana. In other words, the Dhamma follows Sama. Just as a river can be controlled at its source, thereby controlling the flow and securing the banks, etc. If it is tried when the river has taken its full force, it cannot be controlled. You cannot build a dam when the river is in a full weight or full force. Therefore, the Jitendriya does not mean the senses have been destroyed. The Jivan Mukta continues to see, hear, touch, taste, function with all his sensory cognition, sensory actions. It means the senses no longer drag the Jiva. They function as instruments of a Sakshi. And one who knows that neither I am the doer nor the enjoyer. Without generating the raga dvesha. There is no potency for the raga dvesha to generate because raga dvesha is a result of ill-educated andakarana or an andakarana which is under the influence of ignorance, avidya. Therefore, the senses are jita, mean conquered, or in the senses they are no longer the masters for the inner life. The next word in the first of the second line is a complex Bahuvrihi compound. Sarva Bhuta Atma Bhuta Atma. Please listen carefully. The words included are Sarva Bhuta Atma Bhuta Atma. The Bhuta Atma is repeated, but at each level it is a different meaning. Sarva means all, Bhuta means being, Atma means the self. The second Bhuta, instead of being, it is used here as become, and Atman remains as Atman. So, one whose Atman has become the Atman of all beings. That is the meaning of the compound. Listen, one whose Atman has become the Atman of all beings. Repeating again, one whose Atman means what he now identifies as his own Atman. This is the Atman. Now he sees this Atman as the Atman of all beings. He identifies just as I am now the self, the Atma. Everyone, every being, every creation in the world is also the similar way. I have been seeing difference till now based on my mind and the sense organs which were not under my control. So I was seeing the creation of all beings as different, independent, individual with names and forms and qualifications. The moment when I knew my Atma as one which is Vishuddha, means purified, without any raga, dvesha, and the mala of all those things, the Upahita Atma, or the instrument, Andakarana, through which I was seeing the whole thing, is now pure and clear and transparent. Therefore, I am seeing myself as the Atman, not as the individualized ego. And when I am seeing myself as the Atman, which is pure and Nitya and Shuddha, I am able to see the same in all creations. Because all the creations were seen as different due to my impurity of my Andakarana, where I identified myself as the individual and looked at the whole world as names and forms with raga, dvesha, qualifications of likes and dislikes, aggrandizing, hating, all those things. But when Andakarana and the mind became Vishuddha and Vijitatma, the sense organs which were seeing and operating is no more under the control of the uneducated mind, intellect, etc. Therefore, myself, which is now seeing the world, is the one who is seeing the world as Atman itself. And that is the time when I am seeing the whole world as also Atman. So one whose self has become the self of all being is the meaning of the word Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma. We can unpack this compound into three different levels. At the grammatical level, Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma becomes one Atma, means the whose Atman has become Bhuta, the Atman or the self of all beings, Sarva Bhuta. That is the grammatical simple translation. The layer 2 or the second level, when we look at the Advaitic way, the compound encodes the Mahavakya level recognition. Sarvatra Samadarshana, the direct seeing of one's own self, Atman, as the self of all beings, the Atman of all beings. This is not an empathy. Empathy is feeling what others feel. It is a saguna quality. It is not a compassion, responding to others' suffering with a soft mind. No, that is a virtue at the empirical level or the Vyavahara world. Universal love, prema, or the loving everybody as the same. That is a bhavatmakatva. It's a state of the individuality. But here it is the absolute recognition, paramarthika recognition, that the same single Atman, Eka Chaitanya, appears as me and as jivas, appears as the multiplicity of the jivas through Ubhadi Veda, distinction of the limiting adjuncts, such as the one space appears as many space depending upon the distinction of limiting adjuncts, either the pot, the rooms, the buildings, the space, around the sun, moon, etc. That is the distinction, but the space is neither bifurcated, limited, or divided. When we identify it through the limiting adjuncts, Upadhi Veda, then it is the pot, space in the pot, the space in the room, the space in the hall, the space in a hospital or room, house or a school, like that. The Jivan Mukta sees through these upadhis. He is seeing the upadhis, but he is seeing the space which is undivided. The one Atman everywhere. That is the Sarvatma Brahma Darshanam. He is seeing the same self in everywhere, or he doesn't see the Atma or Brahman separate. When we look at the soteriological layer, this recognition is precisely what cannot coexist with bandha or the limited activities. The jiva in bondage sees the Vedas. When we use our limiting adjuncts of the indriyas or the mind or the intellect, we separate ourselves, and everything in the world are separate jivas or separate objects. But the jnani sees abheda, sees in non-difference, not indifference, non-difference. The one Atman appearing as many. This abheda darshana is itself what is called liberation, moksha, freedom, etc. It is not a consequence of any activity or learning or jnana, etc. It is the consequence of liberation. But not as an effect. It is the very content of liberation. It is the nature of the self itself. So when we are saying Jivan Mukta, he is being liberated from the limiting adjunct which he was thinking himself as the body, mind, intellect. He is now liberated from that identification of limitation into the adjunct of the self, which is unlimited, eternal, infinite. Time and space is embedded in that state, not the individual is embedded in space and time. The difference between the space and time is limiting adjunct for the jiva, because he say, I am located such and such a place and my time is so and so. I am so many years old, or from birth, that is 6 years, human life, etc., etc. But when he is liberated as a jivatma, he sees that the time and the space as contents of his own liberation, or his own awareness, or his own existence. The time exists, the space exists in me, in my cognition, in my awareness, in my, what you call, my own nature. So now, having dealt with all these adjectives, Krishna is moving to two words, kurvan api na lipyate, which is very important. It is to bring back from the state of apex liberation, that remaining in the state of apex liberation, the bodily functions, the instrument functions, the world functions, everything can continue. Kurvan is a present active participle word used in a masculine nominative singular form to indicate that while acting, or even as he acts, or in the very act of doing, or in simple word, even while in action. Kurvan. Kuru is the verb to do, to act. So kurvan means acting while acting, is a concessive element of this verse. The verse does not say that Jivan Mukta does not act. He acts, kurvan. He is present and he is active. The teaching is precisely about action continuing while non-binding in the Jivan Mukta's Vyavahara. That is how he is functioning in the world. His conduct as a liberated self, or liberated one in the world, is that he is perpetually liberated. He is never bound by the body-mind complex which otherwise binds us. He is seeing himself in all. Therefore, he is not limited by the adjunct of one body or the other. Kurvan api, even though, despite being active in the body of an individual, the Jivan Mukta, these actions, nalipyate, is not tainted or not smeared or does not adhere or do not bind. So it's a central declaration of this verse that action occurs but leaves no residue in the form of karma samskara or karma phala asakti, or the volition, the impression, the desire, the memories, all those things which are happening in the ordinary person do not happen in this case of a Jivan Mukta. The passive word lipyate is a passive present tense singular third person. Is smeared by, is na smeared by, na lipyate, is not smeared by. Frames the karma as an agent of potential bondage and the Jivan Mukta Atman as a surface upon which it cannot adhere. The Atman, recognized as Asangaha, Nirlipta. Asangaha means unattached. Nirlipta means unstained, sustained. Shows that cannot be bound by the action because it was never in contact with action in the absolute sense. Actions belongs to the upadhis, the body, mind, sense complex, not to the Atman. Therefore, kurvannapi na lipyate, the second part of the second sentence, is to indicate that the 5 adjectives which was mentioned earlier in the case of a Jivan Mukta, Yoga Yukta, Vishuddhatma, Vijetatma, Jitendriyaha, Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma. So that one who sees the self in all as his own self, he is like any other sense objects or the Vishayas, all of them are operational due to the adjuncts in which they are operating. Like he is liberated, he sees everything else liberated. It is not that he sees himself as liberated alone. No. He sees only liberation everywhere. He sees only freedom everywhere. There is no bondage anywhere. Therefore, he is seeing no bondage can bind him. He has no desire to be having, seeing anything separate from him to make it as his own. So the 5 compound attributes of this verse is not a random list which Krishna is talking to Arjuna. They trace a complete inner journey from practice to liberation. Starting with Yoga Yukta, it's a sadhana. Engaged in the discipline of Karma Yoga as an ongoing commitment, when he started, he saw every difference, himself as separate from every object. But his actions, which he began as requirement for the sustenance of the world, the cosmic cycle, he started offering it to the higher pedestal, which became the Karma Yoga. Through the Karma Yoga, he started becoming Shuddhi, Vishuddhatma, rendering the Andakarana transparent as a fruit of sustained yoga, which over a period he understood that he is no longer a reactive mind holder, a fully operative mind sama. He is the master of his own mind. He is not under the manovritti. Therefore, he moves from the manovritti to the jitendriya, where he can function in the world, not controlled by the mind, but free from the mind. Yet, the sense organs are functioning as case of every ordinary person. But the sense organs do not take him away toward the sensory objects as separate from him, because he has seen the Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma. It is the Sakshatkara. or Brahma recognition, the Atman seen as the self of all. The Yoga Yukta Vishuddhatma Jitendriya belong to the Sadhana Bhumi, or the ground of practice, while the Sarva Bhutatma, the fifth one, belongs to the Jnana Bhumi, the ground of recognition. The verse thus encodes the complete transition from a sadhaka to a Jivan Mukta, Siddha. So, na lipyate asanga atman is showing the asanga atman nature of the fundamental Advaitic teaching. That the Atma is ever Shuddha. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says, Asangoyam Purushaha. This Purusha is unattached. The Purusha means the Atman was never attached to action, to the body, to the mind, to the senses, etc. What appears as Sangha, attachment, is the superimposition of the sense of ego, ahankara, upon the Atman through the ignorant adhyasa. And when you become that jnani, he sees through them. The adhyasa is resolved through the Atma Jnanas. The structural impossibility of lipyate becomes apparent. It is no more lipyate. Lipyate requires the surface to smear or attach. Only when karma can attach, because there is a dravya, karma, guna, etc. The Atman is pure drashta, sakshin, with no drishya nature whatsoever. He is not even a seer. Karma belongs to the karyakarta, karyakarana realm, in the realm of causation, in the field of prakriti. Whereas Atman is beyond the prakriti, and prakrite paraha, thus structurally beyond the reach of the karma's addition and possibility. Therefore, na lipyate is not a moral achievement, but it's an ontological fact recognized by the jnani. The lotus leaf in water, Gita's metaphor will be that is unstained not because it tries to remain unstained in the water, but it is the nature of the leaf of lotus for a non-adhesion. Same way, the Jivan Mukta, unstained by the action, not through the effort, but through the recognition of his own true nature of Atman, he continues to function in the world of operation. And the Sarva Bhutatma, there is no other upon whom action is performed by such a person. So the apparent others, which is called the Sarva Bhutani, are manifestations of myself, the one Atman. Action directed toward the other is actually this oneself. Cannot generate in a karma bandha that requires a real subject-object duality, karta karma bheda. But when the duality is dissolved by the Sarva Bhutatma in the Atma Jnana, the karmic mechanism of karta, karma, etc. gets dissolved. And with it, the karma lepana, the smearing of the karma, is also nullified. Therefore, the Sarva Bhutatma is the Jivan Mukta's Atman has become means the Bhuta, the Atman of all beings, Bhutatma. Not through the process of expansion, but through the process of recognition that it always, already and ever, Nitya Shuddha Brahman, appearing as Jiva and Jagat through the upadhis created by Maya. when ignorance takes over, we feel the separation. When this ignorance is dissolved through the Atma Jnana, the Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma sees only Sarva. Yomam Pashyati Sarvatra Sarvancha Mai Pashyati. Krishna says later, we will see that. Sarva Bhutat Hidairata. He becomes the dear of all because he sees all in himself. He becomes all by himself. There is nothing other than himself. When this knowledge dawns in us, that is the time the liberation takes place. Kurvan napi na lipyate. The actions of the Jivan Mukta becomes an act of liberation. It is no more binding. He doesn't cease to act. He continues to act. Others may call it as a prarabdha karma. But from his own point of view, there is no karma at all. The karma, karta, everything becomes atma, the knowledge. So the Jivan Mukta acts through the body as seen by himself and others. But he sees them, all of them, as in his own atma, as not separate from atma. Therefore, his atma doesn't bind, actions doesn't bind. Nalipyate. The continued action generates no new karma. The agami karma, etc. Because there is no karta. The ahankara which was there before that I am the doer, I am the enjoyer, because the separation is real. Therefore, I am an enjoyer of the separated object. That is dissolved now. So there is no sense, no ego sense as the I am the doer. Actions appears to be happening through body. Whereas while the Atman remains untouched by everything. The paradox, how can a sannyasi act or a Jivan Mukta act? The very question implicit in Arjuna's confusion, chapter 3. The Jivan Mukta is a true sannyasi, Nitya sannyasi, which we saw in the 3rd verse. Because not that he has stopped acting, but because he has renounced the doership, kartrutva, the sense of being the doer, which was the reason for the kartrutva. And that was the source of bondage, not the action itself. Action can continue as long as you do not have the ownership or the doership in you. So the Bhashya is very simple Bhashya given by Shankaracharya here. Yogena yuktaha yoga yuktaha. One who is endowed with yoga is called a yoga yukta. Vishuddhatma, vishuddha sattva. One whose mind is purified or purified sattva. Vijitatma, vijita deha. One who has controlled the self, that is one who has mastered the body. The body means the mind, intellect, etc. and sense organs. Jitendriya, who has controlled the sense organs. Sarva bhutatma bhutatma sarvesham brahmadinam sarma brahma stamba paryandanam bhudatam atma bhutaha atmaha pratyak chetanoho yasya saha sarva bhutatma bhutatma samyak darshina ityartaha. He who sees himself has become the self of all being. From Brahma down to the blade of grass. That is whose inner consciousness is the self of all. He is not saying he and the grass is the same. He is and Brahma is the same. But what is Brahma's reality? What is the blade reality? What is the dust reality? What is the reality of everything that is being seen? The Atma of everything. They may have the mind, body, intellect, or the name and form of this thing. But their reality is that they are all the self. Becomes therefore the self of all beings. He does not see the difference between the self in himself and the self in others. Sa tatra evam vartamanaha loka sangrahaya karma kurvannapi na lipyate na karma bihi badyate ityartha. He thus having established even while performing the actions for this welfare of this world is not tainted or bound by the actions. This is the meaning of the verse. The verse 8 and 9 have to be done together. Naiva kinchit karomi ti yukto manyate tattvavit. Pasyan shrunvan sprisan jigran asnan gachan swapan swachan prapalan pralapan visrijjan grannan unmishan nimishan napi. Indriyani indriyasteshu vartanda idhi dharayan. These two verses together, we will do it tomorrow. I'll stop it here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you. Dhanyawad.
Thank you very much, Bindoji. I've opened the chat and the hand raising for any follow-up questions or discussions.
Namaste Venkat.
Namaste.
Sorry, I think looked like there's some glitch. I'm not yet come up. Okay, I can now see myself.
Yeah.
It is sort of culmination, Binoji, that yoga and now, because earlier it was Brahmarpanam that still talked about, Vishuddha, to become Shuddha, that still talked about Karma Yoga. Here, it sort of brought everything together. But I was doing yoga also. This is the integration you talked about. I have some questions there.
Right.
The integration at body level and integration at mind level, because we do yoga at different levels, and samadhi is also yoga at a buddhi level.
Right.
Here it's talked about that Vishuddha, Yoga Yukta Vishuddha. This is living the truth, right, Bindoji? The whole thing now talked about living the truth by recognizing it completely. The highest yoga is what is talked about here, right, Bindoji?
It is actually talking about the state of transcendence of even the body, mind and intellect as seen as not what you call the identity, but as from the level of the self, there is a self for the mind, there is a self for the intellect, there is a self for the body, there is a self for the sense organs, there is a self for the world of objects outside. He is transcending from the level of the multiplicity to the level of the self, which is the self of all. Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma. That transcendence into that state of abidance in Brahman or Atman, and seeing the names and forms, including the body, mind complex, and the world of empirical objects, everything as appearances in the self. It is just like that by becoming the water. From the point of water, the waves, the drops, the river, the cloud, the ice, the snow, everything is seen as water itself. Even though the names and their appearances make them look separately from the physical sense organ of eye, from the sense organ which is beyond the senses of the mind and the intellect as the cognition of the pure self. From the view of the self, the separation dissolves. He sees only that self as himself, as the self of the water, of the waves, the river, the cloud, the snow, everything as himself. This transcendence vision is what is being referred here as Sarva Bodhatma Bhudatma, before he says Na Kurvan Napi Na Lipyate. That is flowing back into the appearances of the wave, the water, the river, the etc. Having identified as the water, remaining as the waves, the river, the snow, the cloud, does not change the wateriness, the self of all. That is what is being discussed here.
Yes, Mitaji. This integration is of particular, attention in this verse. That integration of everything and living the truth seems like that's the high focus. While transcendence is inside out. I think you brought it well. The Dhamma cannot happen with Shama. It has to be inside first. Rest will manifest as
Yes.
So that's two levels are used. One at a yoga level, and that integration and the transcendence leading to the Sarva Bhotatma. That's a result of it. It look like that's a inside out is now talked about as yoga. That's an integration of everything. Is the true yoga? Is that the net summary?
Yeah. See, integration is at the sadhana level. But sadhana has to move beyond the sadhana to the sadhya. At the sadhya level, when you look back, you will see the integration saraya where from the point of the identification of the individuality. The individuality is no more a reality.
I think this is very clear, Benji. This is first time saw Vivek and Vairagya coming together in a big way. It culminates everything in this verse.
Yeah. And the next verse takes us back to the world of operation. The 7th, 8th and 9th verse. So we will see that what Krishna is talking in the Kuruvannapi na Lipyate, how it is applicable for a jnani while living in this world. That also we will see in the tomorrow's class.
Sure, Benji. We'll wait for this.
Thank you, Venkat. Prakash, then we'll meet tomorrow.
Sure, Binod. I think Kam has raised her hand, but I think she's not able to come up, or I'm not sure.
Namaste,
Yeah.
namaste everyone.
Namaste.
So it was a wonderful session, Vindoji. And, just I have no doubts or anything, but just on a lighter note, if I am allowed, I'd like to share something.
Please go ahead.
You were mentioning about, doing Kriya actions that leave no imprints.
Mm.
That kind of detachment, such an absolute detachment with no imprints and no memories, and you were extrapolating like that. So I was just thinking, like, is it really possible? And, sometimes some people go into this Alzheimer's. They
Mm.
So I was just thinking, like, is it a blessing then? Because they forget everything, right? Their memories are erased.
Yeah,
So,
but the difference there it is that the patient in Alzheimer's do not realize the liberation or the freedom while action. They are in a state of oblivion, not in a state of liberation where while in action, the freedom of the action in action, that cannot be realized by the people of Alzheimer's. My mother-in-law, she passed away after an Alzheimer's patient. So I have seen it. I've served her and I've been living with her for almost for 4 years with the height of Alzheimer's. So it is my personal experience of an Alzheimer's patient, which is making me tell that what they are going through and what their state is different from that of a Jivan Mukta.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. I have been with a relative of mine undergoing that. No, but what I was thinking, as long as we have this brain working, as long as we have this structure and functioning with all the system intact and the conditioning and the memories going by default into our brain, you know, uh, I was just thinking, like, whether how much ever we try, is it going to be really possible? Can someone? It was possible for Jagat Gurus and rishis and all those people who were doing tapas all the time, refraining themselves from this loka vyabhara. But for the people like me who day in and out have to interact with people, be in this, in the social media interacting and all that, and we interact with so many people, apart from essential pivotal people, we also interact with unwanted people also. We listen to news and all. So many input go into our brain. So how much our yoga, meditation and dhyana and all this we do, okay, that's a part of us. Maybe like a speed breaker, definitely helps us. But still that absolute state of, what we talk about, this mukti and all that, is it going to be possible? That's my real thing. That's one serious thing. But on the lighter note, I was thinking, like, only for these people it's really possible. For other people, the memory is never going to be erased as long as we are alive. How much ever we do, at least some memory lingers. Um, and second thing I was thinking about is like our early childhood. Like, say, for some people up to 4 years or some people up to 6 years. We would have done so many actions. And the imprints, everything goes as an emotional experience and registers before the verbal language develops in someone. But whether that memory, it goes as some kind of memory, probably, uh, which, we sometimes decode in therapies. But otherwise, sometimes, we don't remember also. So possibly in that state, where we are only learners in the childhood, so it's possible when we are in that state of mind otherwise. So I was just thinking like this and all when you were telling about this memory part of it.
Well, two things You are saying about Jagat Gurus and those who are achieved, it's the so-called people of realization whom we call it as. Are this possible for them to achieve? The answer is no. Every one of us are already in a state, but we are not able to recognize it. As you rightly said, from childhood onwards, whatever actions we have done, it is a mixture of both. Action with ego, individuality, action without ego. We have done both from childhood till now. And it is the actions with the individuality idea or the ego, which is remaining as an imprint as long as we hold on to that. It is holding on to the ego, not to the Atma. But when we are working without that ego, individuality, actions which we have done through this body has been done with liberation, mukti or freedom state, because that is our absolute true nature. But we do not realize, because every now and then we go back to the individuality ego for fulfilling something, thinking we are not full. The Purnatvam, we don't realize it. But there are times when we have acted with Purnatvam, not knowing Purnatvam. But because we are Purnam in our nature, we are complete in our nature. So our actions were done in that level. Those actions will never be remembered, nor will they be needed to be remembered, because that is our true nature. To remember means to have the memory in the mind. When the mind is not what we are, where can you remember them? You won't remember them. But we have acted as we are our true natures as self. Every now and then we do that, but we do not recognize that, we do not realize it. So what is Krishna telling us through these verses is that remember, you are acting as an individual only when you are identifying yourself as an individual. So please be informed through knowledge that you are not the individual, and when that knowledge becomes your realization, you will realize that all the while you were free from everything, bondage or action. It was a feeling that I am the individual, I am acting through the body and mind and intellect. This is what Krishna wants us to understand.
Thank you, Bindaj.
Thank you, Ka. Namaste, Revati. Coming up by mistake. Looks like Revati pressed by hand by mistake. Prakash, we'll wind up today.
Okay, Binduji. So thanks everyone for attending this session. The replays will be available shortly in Advaita Retold channel, but they're already available. Will be available in Clubhouse, so you can listen to it and come for the next lecture, which is tomorrow at the same time at 6:30 a.m. IST. And then the following class will be on Thursday. As always, thank you very much, Bindoji, and thank you, Artemisia, for joining us today. And for the people who came up and asked the questions, a special thank you. Over to you, Bindoji, to close the room.
Thank you, Prakash. I think Revati is here.
Yeah.
Yes. Revati, you can ask if you want to ask. Unmute yourself.
Sorry, Bindarji, network issue was here, so couldn't come.
Okay.
Thank you, Bindarji. Very beautiful session. Am I audible? Can you hear me?
Yes, you are audible. Yes, you are audible.
Yes, Bindarji. Very beautifully explained, Binduji. Very thank you so much. And here it is, I understood it as being a wave. Though I am, even I am water, ocean, being a wave, I am seeing the Pratyekatma in other wave, not as I'm not seeing the wave as a wave. Is it, my understanding
Yeah,
is clear?
yeah. What you're saying is there was slight modification of the wordings. What you said is right. The water of the ocean sees the ocean and the waves, the other forms of water. Everything as water only. So the water cannot differentiate between one water and another water. The wateriness or the nature of water. Like you imagining yourself as water, water, not even a drop of water. Because even a drop of water is a limitation of water. But I am talking about the water as a nature of water. That type of a feeling only you can see that the self as, what is the self? Self is not something separate from us. We are the self. What is that self? That Sat, Chit and Ananda Swarupa. That is our Swarupa. And you can see the Sat in everything, the Chit in everything, the Ananda in everything. So what I am experiencing as Sat Chit Ananda, not as a human being, but as my Swarupa. Every moment of mine is what is nothing but Sat and Chit and Ananda. Every location, every
Yes,
space,
Binduji.
everything is in that. So from that point of view, when I look at anything and everything, I'm not going to differentiate because of the name, it is Revati, Prakash, etc. Seeing the same Satchit Ananda as everything. When that becomes a reality to me, I will be transacting with Revati, I'll be transacting with everyone as normal as everyone. But my inner abidance is not as Bindu, not as an individual human being, but as the Jnana Satchidananda Swarupa. That is the way in which it has to be understood and, appreciated. That is the abidance which we is being asked for.
Yes, Binduji. The Sarvatma Bhava,
Yes,
to understand. Yes. Yes, Binduji. Thank you, Binduji. And Loka Kalyana here is always misunderstood, that Sthitapratnya should do the Loka Kalyana things. So it's
that is
not
from the
the...
other, it is from the other's point of view.
Yes,
For whom
yes,
Loka is there will be Loka Kalyana. But one who doesn't see the Loka separately from himself, where is the Loka
yes.
Kalyana?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Revati. So thank you, Prakash. I found Atmecha said she will be there for only for some time, stayed back till now. And thank you to her, Ajay Atmisha, Revati, Venkat for coming asking the questions. And we'll continue with verses 8 and 9 tomorrow. See you all tomorrow. Have a good day. Good night for those who are winding up the day. See you all tomorrow. Same time. Hari Om. Namaste.
Hari Om. Namaste.